Yesterday, the Pittsburgh Steelers squandered an opportunity to lock themselves in as AFC North champions in 2025 with a win over the Cleveland Browns, who at the time were a 3-12 football team on the road. Instead, they ended up taking an embarrassing 13-6 loss, and now their season comes down to an early playoff game versus the Baltimore Ravens at Acrisure Stadium this week on Sunday Night Football. Today, I took a deep dive into the film for this game, guys, and I got three different sections for my film takeaways today. First thing we're going to talk about is the three things that went wrong for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game and the reasons why they ended up losing this football game. Then I'll get into my normal offensive and defensive takeaways from the film, and then we'll finish up today's show with how to fix this Steelers offense before this week's matchup versus the Baltimore Ravens, because once again, this team will be without DK Metcalf as he serves the second game of his 2-game suspension. But before we get into the film takeaways here, guys, and make sure you settle in because this one's probably going to be a little bit of a longer video. Make sure you guys follow me on X at Jack_Sperry for my film examples and my film study every single week. We can't put film clips on YouTube, unfortunately, guys, because we'll get demonetized, but I can put up film examples and clips up on my X account, so that's where I put all the evidence here that we're going to be talking about today. So if you want the actual evidence, you guys can follow me at Jack_Sperry for my weekly Steelers film study. All right, so now let's start today's video with the three things, in my opinion, that killed the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game. The first thing was that the Steelers passed the ball too much, in my opinion, because you take a look at the splits here for the Cleveland Browns defense when it comes to the pass game versus defending the run game. And I think it's pretty obvious to me, anyway, that you want to run the football on the Cleveland Browns. All right, and this was a big key to victory for me heading into the week. If you remember our game preview last week on the channel, I said run the football because you don't want Myles Garrett to have a bunch of opportunities to get to the quarterback. You have limited wide receiver help. You want to get the run game going. And you guys can see here the Browns are a top 5 passing defense according to EPA per pass this year. And in terms of rushing efficiency, according to the EPA, the Browns are around league average. So if you're going to beat the Browns, going into the game, the Steelers should have known that running the football was the way that you were supposed to do that. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers without not one, but 2 of their top receiving weapons. Not only did you miss DK Metcalf serving the first game of his 2-game suspension this week, and he's obviously your number 1 receiver that takes a lot of the safety attention and opens up opportunities for other people in this offense, but also you lost Darnell Washington very early on in this game, and he is your dynamic yak threat at the tight end position because of his ability to run people over and do all that different stuff. Losing those 2 pieces for this game was massive for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we'll discuss throughout today's show. But also, Pittsburgh's running backs were actually having a really good day. All right, Kenny Gainwell, Jaylen Warren, both of them combined for 4.7 yards per carry in yesterday's game against Cleveland. That is a very good and efficient number. They were moving the ball pretty effectively on the ground all game long. Yet despite that, the Steelers nearly passed the ball on 2/3 of their offensive plays versus the Browns yesterday. So that kind of tells me that Aaron Rodgers is kind of going rogue, and he's kind of taking the offense by the horns here, and he's kind of saying, no, we're going to pass the football here, and I want to take this thing over, when in reality it would have been the smarter move with DK Metcalf not being able to play, with Darnell Washington suffering that fractured forearm, to keep the run game going and try and move the football in that mode of transportation as opposed to the passing game, which wasn't very effective all game long, as we know as the people that watch this game yesterday. And what it really boils down to, guys, for me, and why the Steelers failed versus the Cleveland Browns, especially on offense yesterday, was that the Pittsburgh Steelers were facing a top 5 passing defense in the world on the road in their home stadium without two of their top receiving weapons, and then decided to be a pass-first offense. I think that is a faulty way to approach this football game, and I think they would have been better served by running the football more than they did. Now, I understand that you were down by multiple scores at points in this game, and you had to, pass the ball towards the end of the game more. But even before then, they were a very pass-heavy offense, even before they had to get to the point where they had to throw it on every play. And it just wasn't a good game plan overall that was executed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. And, the results spoke for themselves. I mean, it was an offense that got opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, it felt like, at the end of the game. And, every single drive, you're leaving empty-handed, and you end up losing this football game and only being able to score 6 points. The second thing that killed the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, missed opportunities, okay? And you had a bunch of opportunities, like we just talked about, to take the lead, to tie the game, whatever, in this football game. And here's a crazy stat for you. They had more drives that entered Browns territory yesterday, 7, than they had points in the game. That is unacceptable to me, because if you're entering Browns territory, you're putting yourself in position to score on that drive, all right? And you only score on 2 of those 7 drives, and then both of those scoring plays are field goals. You don't even get 1 touchdown, all right? That is unacceptable to me, guys, that you are getting into enemy territory that many times, and you are either punting close to midfield. Mike Tomlin did that twice. That was kind of cowardly on his part, in my opinion. But then also you're missing a 4th and 1 by throwing a go ball to Scotty Miller. You miss a field goal. You're making dumb decisions, and you're not executing the plays that you're supposed to be executing in those big moments when you enter Browns territory. And if you just take care of your business in Browns territory yesterday, you probably end up winning the football game. And you guys can take a look at some of the big missed opportunities in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, that missed interception early in the game from Kyle Duggar, allowing Harold Fannin to catch that ball and get the game's only touchdown of the game. That ended up being the difference in the ball game. We didn't know it then because it was so early, but that ended up being the only touchdown of the entire football game, and it could have been intercepted. Also, an idiotic 4th and 1 decision from Aaron Rodgers to throw a go ball to Scotty Miller, a 5'9" receiver, when he had, by the way, a wide open Adam Thielen on that play. Also, Nick Herbig's drop pick 6. I mean, that's the difference in the game right there as well. And then also, you had a missed 4th quarter field goal from Chris Boswell, and then also you throw it to MVS of all people, who's got a documented drop issue throughout his career. He does not have good hands. You throw it to him 3 separate times when he's being guarded by Denzel Ward in the end zone to finish the game. All right, that is just unacceptable decision making from Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. But then the third thing that killed the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, in my opinion, was multiple missed calls from the referees. Now, I'm not somebody that's going to stand up here and say the Steelers lost the game because of the referees. All right, I think the Steelers deserve all the blame for putting themselves in a position where the refs, were able to make an impact on this game with some really bad calls. But there was a number of bad calls in this football game, in my opinion, that came in really critical moments. I mean, early in the game, they called OPI on Marquez Valdes-Scantling on a completed fade route to Scotty Miller down the field. That was a huge gain for Pittsburgh. It was not OPI. MVS gets out of the defender's way. Like, that is not an offensive pass interference, but they called it. Ends up being a huge yardage kind of flip there at that point in the game. They also called a kind of bogus false start, in my opinion, with 17 seconds left in the second quarter. It would have been a free play for Aaron Rodgers to take a shot to the end zone. Instead, it's a 5-yard penalty, and you have to settle for the field goal. Also, there was a really bad roughing the passer call, in my opinion, on Cam Hayward. There was a false start on a 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter that I thought was kind of BS as well. That ends up ending a drive close to midfield, and then at the end of the game, there's a clear DPI on Marquez Valdes-Scantling that was not called on the final play of the game, and that's how you lose the football game. So there's multiple instances here where I think the referees made the wrong call, and it ended up negatively impacting the result of this football game. Now, I don't think this is the number one reason why the Steelers lost, and I'm not sitting up here saying the NFL told the referees to give the game to Cleveland or anything like that. But with these calls, if you wanted to push that narrative, you'd have a case, all right? If you wanted to say the NFL wanted Steelers versus Ravens for Sunday Night Football, and they were willing to do whatever it took in terms of making calls and all this different stuff to make that a reality so that they could get ratings for Sunday Night Football in Week 18, you'd at least have a case for that. I'm not making that case, but with some of the bad calls that the referee crew, in my opinion, made in this football game, you might have a case for that. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Did the NFL help the Cleveland Browns win yesterday? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, the Steelers are to blame for the loss, guys, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. So just give me a yes or a no while I tell you about this awesome opportunity to get a great piece of Steelers apparel, which is a Salute to Service Steelers hoodie. You guys can go to our website right now, go chatsports.com/pitsalute25 to get this Salute to Service Steelers sweatshirt in your collection today. If you have some extra money that you got from, Christmas and all this different stuff, and you want to get yourself a nice little gift here post-Christmas, pre-New Year, you guys can go to chatsports.com/pitsalute25 and get this hoodie in your collection today. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. Every time you click that link and you make a purchase of one of these hoodies, it helps out the channel. All right, so we greatly appreciate your guys' support. And again, that's chatsports.com/pitsalute25 to get this hoodie in your closet today. So we'll start here with the defensive film takeaways instead of the offensive film takeaways, because really, there's more positive on the defensive side of the ball, and I want to dive into the offensive failures closer to the end of today's show. But we'll start here on defense, and I thought it was a really strong tackling performance from the Steelers defense once again. Over the last month, the Steelers have been one of the top tackling teams in the National Football League. They're pursuing well. They're taking good angles. They're not really missing a lot of tackles, and they're doing a lot of good stuff here in terms of bringing down these weapons on offense of opposing teams the first opportunity they have. Then also, I think the pass rush is completely getting after it. You're getting interior pressure, you're getting exterior pressure. Everybody from Derek Harmon to Cam Hayward to Ezesi Otomiwu and Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer even, and especially Alex Highsmith are really getting after the quarterback. And Highsmith, I think, is really balling out, man. And he's really stepped up as the number one edge rusher for the Pittsburgh Steelers here these last 3 weeks since TJ Watt has been out of the lineup. And if TJ can't go this week against the Ravens, I have a high level of confidence in this pass rush still, despite missing your $41 million per season edge rusher, because Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig are that good of a duo in their own right. So really excited to see what Highsmith's going to be able to do for the rest of this season. And then also I thought it was another solid game from Patrick Queen. When he's allowed to go downhill and just make a tackle, he's pretty darn good, all right? He's not the best guy in pass coverage, and he's not the best in between the tackles or anything like that, but when he's able to shoot a gap or go sideline to sideline, get a tackle behind the line of scrimmage, that's where PQ's value comes from. And he had a couple examples of that in this game, and he's been really solid overall these last few games, and he's a big reason why this Steelers defense has gone from pretty okay to really good over the last month or so. Then also Jalen Ramsey definitely held down the slot cornerback position with Brandon Echols out of the lineup. He's a really good nickel player, guys, and I think I just love watching him play because he's so physical, but he is really good in coverage. He plays with great instincts. I think that he's such a natural nickel player, but he's also a good safety, and I'd love to see him go back to safety because I don't want to see Chuck Clark in this defense anymore. Now, Chuck actually made some decent plays. He made some nice downhill tackles and stuff like that. He did give up a big play in the first half in man coverage, but I think it's time for Echols' return. Bring him back, get him into the slot. Hopefully Echols' groin is good to go this week, and obviously this is a big football game coming up on Sunday versus the Ravens, so you want all hands on deck, and hopefully Echols will be able to return so that Ramsey can replace Clark as the other starting safety in this defense. But then Joey Porter Jr., man, he is still on absolute lockdown in man coverage, and I think we've officially found our franchise CB1 here in Pittsburgh, guys. We've always thought that Porter had the potential. It's just he would be grabby too much. He made some rookie mistakes. He had to learn some lessons in his first couple years in the league. This year, he has really taken that next step, in my opinion, as a true lockdown man-to-man corner. He's been displaying that ability all season long. He's a big reason why this Steelers defense has been as good as it's been over the last month. Then we get to man coverage in general, which, along with Joey Porter Jr., but everybody else, Asante Samuel Jr. was really good in man coverage yesterday as well. When James Pierre was healthy, he was doing a really good job. Brandon Echols, we started the season as a very man-heavy team, and this team was terrible at it. Darius Slay was awful in man coverage. Jalen Ramsey would have trouble sticking with some of the better route runners in the league, but now man-to-man coverage has actually become quite a strength of the Pittsburgh Steelers down the stretch. Still really like it when they do their creative Tampa 2 looks and all that stuff that Terrell Austin mixes in, but the fact that you can go to man in those big moments is a big advantage that the Steelers now have on this side of the football. But there was 2 big mistakes from the Steelers defense in this game. I don't think the Steelers defense was the reason why they lost this game, but there was 2 big mistakes that stick out to you. Obviously, the first one being that missed interception opportunity from Duggar on the second drive of the game. Shadur Sanders throws up a floater too far inside and down the field on a smash concept, and Duggar gets over there in time, but he's not looking looking, and he runs right past Fannin, who's just able to catch the ball and then roll into the end zone. If Duggar just has his eyes on the football, that's at least an incompletion, but probably an interception as well. He made a similar play on his actual interception later in the game, so I know he's capable of making that play. Then also Nick Herbig, who has been stellar for this team this year, dropped a crucial pick-6 opportunity. Shedeur Sanders just made a terrible decision, and his lack of arm strength on that throw was definitely evident. It went right in Herbig's hands. It would have been an easy touchdown, a walk-in touchdown for him, and he ends up dropping it. And of course, that ends up being the difference in this ball game, just 7 points. And if you get both of these plays here, the Steelers likely win the football game. So I don't think the Steelers were the reason, or the Steelers defense was the reason why they lost the game, but there were certainly a couple mistakes that you wish you had back if you were the Steelers defense today. But then, my final takeaway on this side of the football is you got to get the stops that are needed, and you did. And that's exactly why I don't blame the Steelers for this loss. The offense had a number of opportunities in this game, and the Steelers defense gave them opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. They got 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out in that fourth quarter, and they got off the field extremely quickly and gave Aaron Rodgers and company every opportunity to go win the game, or at least tie the game. Unfortunately, they couldn't capitalize, so this one is on the offense. Let's talk about what happened in this football game. And no, Andrew Filipponi, this team was not too worried about the Myles Garrett record, and they weren't, bailing on the win to prevent Myles Garrett from getting the record. That is just an absolutely idiotic take, in my opinion. Now, obviously, Garrett ended the game with 0 sacks versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like he did back in Week 6. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are just doing what every other team tries to do but just fails at doing, and that's getting the ball out quickly, rolling away from him, giving all the help that they do against Myles Garrett. And, Myles was a little bit sour after the game about that, and this is what he had to say. He took a little shot at us. He says, to an extent, I feel like they were more worried about keeping me away from Aaron Rodgers than, getting the win. I think that's what came back to bite them, and I couldn't disagree more. I think that's just a little bit of sour grapes that he can't say that he beat T.J. Watt's record in the same amount of games. T.J. Watt ended up getting the same amount of sacks that he has now through 17 games. And literally every single team tries to do what this Pittsburgh Steelers did against Myles Garrett yesterday. Not allow a sack, all right? Get the ball out quickly. Roll away from him. It's just the Steelers just so happened to do it better than anybody else this season. Didn't allow a single sack versus Myles Garrett in either of their 2 football games this year. So that wasn't the issue, all right? What is the alternative? Letting him absolutely wreck our starting quarterback all game long? Would that have led to a Steelers win? Give me a break, guys. That just is not what is the biggest reason why the Steelers lost this football game. So let's talk about some of the actual reasons why the Steelers lost. And I think the buck stops with Aaron Rodgers in this offense, okay? He has a lot of play-calling control, and it just wasn't Rodgers' best game in the world. In fact, he made a lot of mistakes and a lot of actual mental mistakes. We know Rodgers is one of the best mental processors in NFL history, but the way that it usually works with this Steelers offense, guys, that Arthur Smith gives Rodgers 2 plays in the huddle, usually a run play and a pass play, and then if Rodgers sees something in the coverage pre-snap, he can kill both plays and then call a number of different audibles that he has at his disposal. So Rodgers has full control of this offense, and he's the one that is responsible for getting this team in the right play and in the right situation, and he just didn't do that consistently yesterday. He also had some poorly thrown balls from an accuracy perspective, but really the mental mistakes, throwing to Scotty Miller on that 4th down and 1 when he had a wide open Adam Thielen underneath to pick up a new set of downs on a gotta have it 4th and 1 situation. Just simple things like that, where it's you would expect a future Hall of Famer and one of the most intelligent quarterbacks in NFL history to be able to make those decisions and get those decisions right. He just didn't do that consistently yesterday, and it was a big reason why the Steelers struggled on offense, in my opinion. Then also his buddy MVS. Why is he even playing? All right, I thought he was supposed to come in here and be, the guy that had all this connection with Aaron Rodgers, but MVS is very quickly getting on my shit list, right next to Jonnu Smith. All right, in terms of guys that don't really do anything for this offense. They don't run particularly great routes. They don't block. They don't catch the football at a high level. Valdez-Scantling has been known as somebody with a drop issue for many years at this point. The only thing that he really brings to the table is that he's fast and he's got some size. That's all he brings, yet he's the one that's getting the most targets in this entire offense. He gets the final 3 targets of the game all in a row versus Denzel Ward. Like, what is it about MVS that Aaron Rodgers just has a hard-on for, man? And, I thought that he was supposed to be the chemistry guy. I thought he was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to be on the same page with Aaron Rodgers, because that's what we were told was the issue with Roman Wilson. Oh, he's not on the same page with Rodgers. Oh, he's not running the routes the way that he's supposed to be running them. Well, how many times was MVS and Aaron Rodgers not on the same page yesterday? 4 or 5 times out of his 9 targets weren't on the same page? Like, that is just way, way, way too much in a game that big. And, other than size, what does MVS bring to the table in this offense that Roman Wilson doesn't? I would say Roman Wilson is just as good of a blocker. I would say Roman Wilson just as good at least as a route runner. They're both 4.3 speed guys. I would say Roman's hands are actually better than MVS's. The only thing that MVS has over Roman, in my opinion, is that supposed established chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, which apparently doesn't exist, and then the size that he brings to the table. So for me, guys, I'm not convinced MVS is a better receiver than Roman Wilson. I'm not convinced he should be getting playing time over Roman Wilson at this stage of the season. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who's the better wide receiver and who should be starting for this offense? Type MVS for Marquez Valdez-Scantling or RW for Roman Wilson. Now, another thing is that I want to point out is that the Steelers did get some very fortunate fumble luck yesterday on offense. The team had 3 separate fumbles, and the Steelers were able to get on top of all 3 of them. Warren had one, Rodgers had one, and then MVS had one. Surprise, surprise. But the Steelers were able to recover all 3, so I did want to mention that the Steelers did get a little bit lucky in that regard. But then the offensive line, man, it just continues to ball out. It's just been so good this season. The young players, especially on the right side, have been fantastic. McCormick, Fautanu, Frazier are just absolutely locked in as the future of the right side of this offensive line. Dylan Cook looks like he could be somebody that could work out in the future here at left tackle. Seumalo did not play in this game, but obviously he's played at a high level. Like, if we can get into the postseason, guys, and Seumalo gets back, this is a legitimate offensive line that could do some damage. And because that offensive line was playing well, that allowed the run game to work well. And we talked about that earlier. 4.7 plus yards per carry from Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell combined last night, or yesterday, I should say. And, that's got to be a big part of the game plan next week versus Baltimore, in my opinion, because this running back duo all season has been the best thing about this Steelers offense, period. Then talking about Dylan Cook here, I think you got to keep him at left tackle, man, because he did a good job against Myles Garrett in that game yesterday, and he's done a good job for 3 straight weeks. And, good film is good film, and it doesn't matter if you're a UDFA, it doesn't matter if you're a first-round pick. Dylan Cook is the best left tackle on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. And that includes Broderick Jones, who was your first-round selection a few years back, and you traded up to go get him. But listen, man, the best player's got to play, and if Cook continues to play this way, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down, and he just shut down the Defensive Player of the Year. Sure, he had some help, but, he did a really, really good job against Myles, and he did a better job against him than most people do in the league, and, guys that are very highly paid. So I think he's got to be the starting left tackle next year. You got to give him a new contract, bring him back. Now, that begs the question, what about Broderick Jones? What do we do with him? And I think that there's 2 options in terms of what you could do with Broderick. The first option is move him to left guard. Isaac Seumalo is in his 30s, and you could let him go into free agency, and then you could move Broderick Jones to left guard. And I think that Broderick could actually be a pretty decent offensive guard in the National Football League, all right? And if he could work out at left guard, that means you've got Cook, Broderick, Frazier, McCormick, and then Fautanu, all young players, all on the offensive line, and that could be something that could really work in the future if Broderick can successfully make that transition. But the other option is you could trade Broderick for a draft pick. Broderick, in my opinion, is a starting level left tackle in this league, and there's going to be a lot, and he's still very young and very talented. And there's a lot of teams out there that are desperate for left tackle help that might give up a mid-round draft pick for a guy like Broderick Jones. And he could potentially start somewhere else. So if you're looking for more draft capital, you could trade him. If you want to let Seumalo walk in free agency and you want to save some money, you could move him to left guard. So pick your left tackle for me down there in the comment section for 2026. Type DC if you want Dylan Cook to return next season as this team's starting left tackle. Type BJ if you think Broderick should get another shot at it next year. Or type O if you'd rather go out in free agency and get another left tackle or draft another one in the draft. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who should be the starting left tackle for this team next season. Now, the final offensive takeaway I want to go over here is the final play. That's been it's been debated and all this different stuff over the last 24 hours or so, and I want to give my take on it because this clip from Trey Day, a former Pittsburgh Steeler offensive lineman who criticized Rodgers for not seeing Kenny Gainwell, who was apparently wide open on the final play of the game, criticized him for not throwing this ball to Kenny Gainwell. All right, and obviously, he knows what he's talking about. He knows ball. He's a former professional football player. All right, but I'm going to tell you why I disagree with that, even though Kenny Gainwell was undeniably open. All right, so we'll start here with the pre-snap look. And pretty much across the board, it's the classic cover one look that Cleveland's been living in all season long. You guys can see that all the corners and DBs are man aligned. You got the two defenders in the middle, to prevent any in-breaking routes or whatever. And based on this pre-snap look, Kenny Gainwell should not be open because there is a safety on him, Grant Delpit, and according to this coverage, you wouldn't expect Kenny Gainwell to be as open as he ends up being, but the sideline is going to be open in a one-on-one opportunity for MVS down the sideline there and in the end zone, and in a gotta-have-it touchdown situation, Rodgers decided to go with the one-on-one on the outside. Now, personally, I would not love to throw that fade route because MVS is a guy that's not really known as a hands catcher, and he's going up man-to-man, one-on-one versus one of the best man corners in football and Denzel Ward. That's not a high percentage look for me in terms of, a game-winning play. All right, I would have gone to something different, and I would have liked a better play call here. And if you want to, and if you have to run this play, honestly, something that I might have thought of is looking to the left there, get that middle defender to shade towards Gainwell, and try to rip a ball to Adam Thielen on the in cut there, because Pat Freiermuth is running a kind of a clear route, and then Thielen is kind of cutting in between there. But because Rodgers is looking right, the intermediate zone defender is shading to that side, so Thielen's not open, and it creates that massive hole for Gainwell. But everyone's talking about how screenshot warriors, Rodgers has to throw this to Gainwell. But if he's looking at Gainwell to start the play, that middle of the field defender is shading towards Gainwell, and he's not nearly this open. The reason why he's that open is because Delpit, who's on him in man coverage, is for some reason backing off of him, which there's no way Rodgers could have anticipated that pre-snap. And then the middle of the zone defender there is going towards Thielen. So that's why Gainwell is so open. And if he's looking at Gainwell right away, this play is not there. So, I personally disagree with the idea that, he should have gone to Gainwell here, because there's nothing pre-snap or even post-snap there that said, Aaron, change where you're going and go to Kenny Gainwell. That just wasn't the case, in my opinion. Now, the big question when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, all right, is how does this team and this offense fix this thing in a week without DK Metcalf again? Because you're going to be without your number one receiver for a second straight week in a game that you absolutely have to win versus the Baltimore Ravens in order to make the NFL postseason. Okay, and I've got 5 suggestions on how to fix this thing. First thing, we got to hold Aaron Rodgers accountable. He's got to be mindful of matchups and of situations. If it's 4th down and 1, maybe not throw a go ball to a 5'9" receiver versus an excellent man corner. All right, maybe try and just move the sticks. How about we do that? Maybe we take the shot on 1st or 2nd down, but maybe not 4th down and short. Okay, then also not throw it to MVS versus Denzel Ward. All right, technically football speak wise, that's a good matchup if you have DK Metcalf or a really good ball winner. But MVS isn't that receiver, so he has to be mindful of the strengths and weaknesses of his players, and he has to be mindful of the situations to be able to make the correct decisions with the football. That's something Rodgers has, unfortunately, not been particularly great at this season. Another thing you got to do is you got to utilize the running back duo, all right? Whether that's just straight running the football more, or whether that's throwing them the football on screens or dump-offs or anything like that. We've seen that happen a ton this year, and when the Steelers get the ball to Kenny Gainwell, when they get the ball to Jaylen Warren, good shit happens. That has to be a big part of the game plan this week, especially with DK Metcalf out of the lineup. Then when it comes to the passing game, you got to make Adam Thielen and Pat Freiermuth the number one reads on pretty much every single drop back situation, okay? In my opinion, when I watched the film today, it was really eye-opening to see just how often Adam Thielen got open. He's a actually really good route runner. He's so intelligent, knowing where to sit down in the zones. And, Aaron Rodgers is off looking at MVS for his first read or Scotty Miller for his first read. When it's no, against this coverage, Adam Thielen is going to put you in the right spot there. There's a reason why he was the guy that caught 3 third-and-long conversions for you just a week ago. How about we get it to this guy when DK Metcalf is out of the lineup? And don't just run him on DK Metcalf routes, right? That back shoulder ball that he threw to Adam Thielen, that's not his skill set, man. Put him in the slot, let him find that soft spot in the zone, and then throw it to him with anticipation. That's what the primary read should be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Thielen, I think, is going to have a big game versus Baltimore if they're going to come out with the victory. But also another guy that's a zone killer in this offense is Pat Freiermuth, who has been a killer on seams all season long, man. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hit Pat Freiermuth on, I think, 3 separate seams in this game during the 2-minute drills, and that was the only times Pat Freiermuth got the football. How about we get him involved on those seam routes earlier in the football game so we can exploit that weakness in these defenses that we're seeing against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Like, get Pat Freiermuth involved earlier along with Adam Thielen. Plus, it looks like Calvin Austin could be available this week. We'll see what his status is on that hamstring injury. If he gets back in the mix, then you got another shiftier wide receiver that you guys could, that Arthur Smith can use on crossers and on on certain fades and certain stuff like that where you could use his speed to your advantage, but we'll just have to see. But another thing that the Steelers are going to have to do, and this is what really worries me about this week's game in particular, guys, you're going to have to hit some deep shots. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, attempted, if I'm not mistaken, 11 passes, 15-plus yards down the field yesterday, and I think that he only completed one of them, all right? Like, he actually threw the ball down the field a lot. It just, every single one was falling incomplete, it seemed like. So you're going to have to find somebody that can, get open and catch a deep pass. And Baltimore is going to play aggressive. That's what they did the last time they played us. They, put everybody in the box. They forced the Steelers to throw the football down the field. And hey, you had DK Metcalf. So on those one-on-one opportunities, he went for over 130 yards, and he had an awesome football game. You don't have DK Metcalf this week. So who's going to be that guy that's going to get open down the field? And for me, guys, that guy might have to be Roman Wilson, because Roman has been one of the better, deep route runners on the Steelers this year. All right, there's been a number of opportunities where he has stacked a corner on a go ball or on a fade, and the quarterback just couldn't put it on him accurately. All right, and that's not on Roman Wilson. That's on the quarterbacks for not throwing accurate footballs to him, right? So Roman has actually shown with that 4.3 speed, he can actually separate down the field and deep down the field. So if you're looking for somebody to win on post routes, if you're looking for somebody to stack a corner on a go ball and then you throw that thing down the sideline, I think Roman Wilson might be that kind of alert, deep option. Your primary read can be Pat Freiermuth or Adam Thielen, but if they completely, bring the house and they have a one-on-one opportunity for Roman down the sideline and he wins, chuck that thing up to him, man, and keep that Baltimore defense honest, okay? Because if you don't, they're going to be very aggressive all day long. You're not going to be able to dump it off to Jalen Warren and Kenny Gainwell as much as you're going to want to. The underneath stuff and the quick game's not going to be there as much as you want to. You got to hit some downfield shots in this game. I think Roman Wilson could be the key to unlocking the Steelers offense this week. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What's your confidence level that Pittsburgh's offense is going to turn it around this week? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10 for me down there in the comment section. Personally, I'm sitting at about a 3.5 or a 4. I don't have a high level of confidence. This offense is going to turn it around this week without DK Metcalf, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors by Chat Sports. I appreciate you guys sticking with me here. I know these film takeaways videos tend to be pretty darn long, so I really do appreciate you guys sticking with me here. We do these film takeaway videos every single week here on Steelers Talk, so if you love this in-depth type of analysis, offense and defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what we try to provide for you guys right here on Steelers Talk, so click that subscribe button if you haven't already.